Yeah, okay, the Jentry Podcast. I know that you will be loving it. We here to break it down so that you start to understand your local government. Who are the leaders? Time to get active, do something about it. Dealing with jobs, the workforce, and affordable housing. Motivate and inspire. Elevate, take it higher. For the next generation, knowledge is power for your community. Giving you the info that you really need. Time to make a change and a difference. Tune in, don't miss it. It's the Jentry. The Jentry Podcast. The Jentry Podcast. Making a change, switching it up.
Hello and welcome to the Jentry Podcast. Today we have an incredible guest. We have Phil Smith Haynes. He is the County Administrator of Saline County, Kansas. He is incredible. I've had a chance to get to know him and speak to him briefly, but the one thing I will say, he may be the funniest county administrator that I've ever spoken to. So I can
Oh man, you're overselling it, man.
No, yeah, I call it like I see it. So, well, Phil, no, thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today?
I'm good. I just got back from vacation, so I'm great.
Yeah, he did. He did tell me. I'm glad you're back, and we appreciate you jumping on with me, and more importantly, our viewers to have a fruitful conversation. So let's dive right into it. What is the secret sauce of Saline? What is it? Could be either just the reason that you feel most tied to the community, if that's an easier question.
Best job ever, primarily because of the people. We have incredible department heads here. We have a really great county commission, really like the best group I've worked for. And I love many of the people that I've worked with and for in the past, but this group is just really special. They don't always agree, but they're always very respectful to each other and really have the best interests of the community in mind. There's not a lot of weird hidden agendas that you sometimes get in political positions. And so it's just been an absolute privilege to be here. And so I hope I'm selling that because I'm going to be retiring next year, and I want all your listeners to apply to take my place in this awesome place.
No, that is incredible. And I always say, like, half our listeners are already in municipal government, so they may be excited to jump on that. And the other half are young, early millennials, Gen Z, and just potentially getting a career started in municipal government and in county government. So I'm really excited to have you. You've had a wealth of experience. You've been in Kansas, you've been in California. But let's take it all the way back, if you don't mind, especially for those young listeners. Was this always a dream? Did you know you were going to be leading counties? Was this the foregone conclusion? What was your childhood like, and what was the path that led you here?
What was my childhood like? So is it a podcast or therapy? I don't know. No, it's you go through these things in life and you do these different things where you try and describe yourself. And I went to this one exercise where instead of doing a bio skit, we had to write a poem, right? About like how, and I came up with this analogy of a cottonwood tree, which is the state tree of Kansas. They're very big, and a set of train tracks. It's the cottonwood tree and the train tracks. So my mom is sort of the cottonwood tree. Like, she is very rooted in place. Her family, they've lived in the same community for generation. And then my dad is the set of train tracks, and literally he worked for the Santa Fe Railroad for 36 years, but he moved around all over the country. So he was born in Kansas. He started school in Chicago. He went to junior high in Southern California. He met my mom in Southern Arkansas. So I've been here. I'm the youngest, but we've lived in, like, I think we had 6 or 7 houses in 4 different communities. since just between the time I was 0 to 18. And so I got to see a lot, like, we weren't world travelers, right? Like, not to the extent of some people, but there was a lot of like moving around and seeing different places and kind of seeing what made places tick a little bit. Like, why are some places bigger than others? Why are some more successful than others? What does that all look like? But as a kid, it's like there's not really a name for that. Like, how, when you're 14, how do you think about community building? And so it was, that seemed like local government. When I was a freshman in high school, I got to do an independent study course. And so I paired up with our state representative, the county attorney, and the mayor. And the mayor was at that time serving as the president of the statewide League of Municipalities. So it was pretty cool experience. Like, I got to go to like a professional conference when I was 14 years old. So that sort of sparked my interest. But then again, high school, college, I thought I wanted to be a banker. I was like, and then I got into the 500 level econ courses, and I was like, wait, you mean how you draw those supply and demand curves is all based on a theoretical bias? That's as squishy as political science. I might as well do something different. So I took this course called Intro to Public Administration, and I was like, oh, okay. That's like how you actually get stuff done. Because political science can be about just studying Sun Tzu kind of stuff. Like, it can be very theoretical. But public administration is like, okay, how do you actually like get to a majority vote? How do you actually do a project? And so I was intrigued by that. So I'd had this local government sort of thing, and then I had this intro to public administration class. But again, I was like, I went to law school. We all make mistakes in life. So I went to law school. And I got out of that and I was like, I don't want to do this. I just don't. And so I still had this call of this thing. And so I ended up going back and getting a master's in public administration. And I just knew I wanted to do government something, like, I don't know. But I got an internship with Sedgwick County, which is where Wichita is. And the guy who was the county manager there at the time, Bill Buchanan, he was there for years and years, and had a lot of interns, produced he's got a track record of producing a lot of managers, and just he's inspirational in good ways and bad. I mean, he has his warts like all of us, um but yeah, I mean, that was when I was really like, yeah, okay, I want to do this. Like, I want to pursue this as a career. But at that point, I'm like 25 at that point, before I kind of figured it out. And that was 30 years ago. So now I'm mysteriously at the other end of my career, which I can't believe. But it happens.
Yeah. So it sounds like, and I find that interesting when you said you were younger and you were noticing the differences in communities. They never worked for, but you were noticing the differences in communities. I similarly, I think, like, I knew like my county and I knew all the neighboring counties, and I saw some differences, I'll say, and it was very abundantly clear for me. But I don't know if I was able to cross the chasm to think the local government is the entity that can try to effectuate change for that. Sounds like you did.
Yeah, I mean, not at first. I mean,
Okay.
not like in elementary school, but at some point, like, I kind of made that connection in some weird way. Like, okay, there are people who are actually in charge of all of this. I think part of it was um I always kind of liked history and geography. And so, like, I was that weird, nerdy kid. Like, I read the Constitution in junior high and all that kind of stuff. So I was like, oh, okay, well, like, states have a constitution too. And cities have like a charter. And I wonder what that's all about. I wonder what that says. So, yeah.
So, but it feels like that interest was always there, or at least that intellectual curiosity. I'll just like state that. But then it kind of crystallized once you got into that public administration class. You're like, whoa, I'm a doer. I want to be able to do. I like political science because of the theory and the subject matter, but I want something where I'm actually doing. And then you couple that with the internship, and now it's like you're actually understanding that you're going into your career.
Yeah.
Now, you're on the other side of that career, but I've gotten to read up on the steps of that career. Can you kind of talk to maybe going out west and then coming back? I think it was in 2019. What was the driving factors behind some of the moves, and then what were the differences that you maybe saw outside of Kansas?
Yeah. So Kansas has traditionally been a really strong local government state. Um, uh, so local control, is sort of enshrined in the state constitution. Cities got home rule during the Kennedy administration by constitutional amendment. And counties in Kansas also have home rule, but it's by statute, not constitutional. And that's sort of like what I grew up in, just from like being a resident, but then also starting my career in Kansas. What happened was I turned 29. And like we all have these traumatic, some people are like, oh, 40, 50, whatever. For me, it was 29 because 29 was OMG. I've got 365 more days and then I'm 30. And there was all this stuff in my head that I was going to do before I turned 30. And that wasn't like, I got 365 days. That stuff's not going to happen. Like what? And so it was the birthday that really sort of made me take stock of like, what am I doing? Like, I am just sort of drifting on. I mean, I'd started my career like 3 years in, but it was like, is this what I want to do? And I'm driving across Central Avenue in Wichita going, do I see myself doing this for the next 30 years? And it was like, no. So one of my classmates in grad school, I had gotten my internship in Wichita in Sedgwick County, and she had gotten her internship in Fremont, California. And so we went out to visit her, and I'd been to California before. My husband had never been out there, and he looked at me at some point. We were like driving around the Bay Area with her, and at some point he looked at me and said, if you ever have the chance to get a job out here, do it. And so, but that was like 3 years before, and then my 29th birthday. And then when I turned 29 and had this big epiphany, I was like, okay, well, maybe I should do that. And so I actually applied for 2 different jobs because I'd worked in county. And so I decided I needed to work in a city, and I needed to work in a suburb, and I needed to work in public works. Those were like, so that's what I wanted to do. So I applied for a job in Kansas City suburb in public works and in San Francisco suburb in public works. And I got the job in California. So we packed up and moved, and it was just, it was the worst timing. Like, it was just the worst time. Like, he had just started a new job. It was August. We're driving a U-Haul across the desert in August. It was, his dad was dying. Like, literally, I'm in traffic in Sacramento, and my cell phone rings, and it's his brother. And he's like, and And it was just like, it was the .com boom, like finding a place in the Bay Area. And we had just bought a house in Kansas. We were in the middle of fixing it. Like, one room didn't have walls because we were tearing it down to the studs. And it's like, we're not going to be able to sell this in this condition. Like, it was just like horrible timing. Like, but it was an opportunity, and it was like, okay, let's do it. And so ended up staying out there. I said, this is an experiment. I'm gonna try this, and if it doesn't work out, 2 years, move back to Kansas. No, we'll just try it, see what happens. And I stayed for 15 years, about 4.5 in the Bay Area, and then we moved up north into the Redwoods for almost 11 years.
So it seems like it was inopportune timing on one end, and I'm very sorry to hear about your husband's father. That's just a horrible time. But on the flip side, it was a springboard to a very successful and long-term career out on the West Coast. And the one thing that I love is that you have the experience at both city and county. And I've had guests attempt to boil down the differences, and I'm definitely going to ask you some of those differences. What do you see are just the major differences and maybe what you're focused on or how you look at things from a city versus a more county perspective?
Yeah, it's real simple. Cities do things far more efficiently. Counties do far more interesting things.
Okay.
That's it. Cities, all cities, and, ICMA member, like, I'm drink the Kool-Aid, like, I'm supposed to be all about the city manager form of government, right? But even if it's a strong mayor city, all cities have a central seat of power, and all cities are streamlined to that central seat of power. No county is. Every county has multiple elected officials, counties are like the universities of local government. They're 1,000 points a no. But cities, they do cutesy stuff. I mean, not that it's not important, but water, sewer, parks, zoning. Counties, we fight pandemics. I mean, public health is a county function. In lots of states, welfare, homelessness, all those kinds of issues are county functions. We also, I brag a little bit, like, we are the defenders of capitalism. Like, private property would not exist without a record of who owns it. Well, guess who keeps that? Your county recorder. Like, cities arrest people and they drop them off at our door, and we do everything else. We jail them, we prosecute them, we public defend them, we house the courts where all that occurs, we do community corrections. Like, they're done. They get the arrest warrant, they're done. We do everything else beyond that. So those are much more, and, my city folks, they disagree with me, whatever. But those are much more challenging and interesting things. Because I worked for city public works. I love clean water. I do. I love when I flush and the toilet works, and that's great. I love a good city park, walk my dog. Yeah. Okay, all important things, but just not that interesting. Not like tackling economic equality. That's a county. So that's my deal. Cities, far more efficient. Counties, far more interesting.
That's I hadn't heard it put like that yet, so I appreciate that perspective, and it does make sense that with that centralized form of power, and obviously there's stakeholders at the city level that people have to be beholden to or have to listen to and have to understand their points of views. But at the county level, I can definitely see, having worked with counties, how there are decentralized forms of power and a lot of stakeholders that you have to understand, and very, very difficult issues to work with. Now, I'd love to, just for our viewers, to make it more real, can you give us an example of either initiative or an issue that you've worked on recently in Saline, just to kind of just hear what the county administrator actually does.
Sure. Well, I could give you a couple. And we're doing a lot of construction projects. We recently built a new county correctional facility, which, okay, you're building a building, but the thought process into that and what that needed to look like to provide a different experience for the staff and for the incarcerated population and for the community and all of that. I mean, that was fascinating to just go through that process with the architects, you got an elected sheriff, you've got the Board of County Commissioners that's issuing the bonds, you've got, all these stakeholders, and then community engagement around that. I mean, it was a bond issue. You had to, get people to vote for it. And, going out, doing community meetings, hearing what people were concerned about. It's just so, yeah, I built a building, but there was all that around it, right? The other fascinating thing has been the ARPA funding. And it's very interesting because I said to somebody a few years ago, I said, I've spent my whole career saying no. Budgets are about how many people am I going to disappoint this year, right? My very first budget as county administrator was during the Great Recession, and we issued 42 layoff notices. So that makes the new guy super popular, right? And it was a unionized environment too. So that's just awesome. So okay, I feel like I've spent my whole career being the no guy. And then all of a sudden we get CARES funding. And then right on the heels of that, we get ARPA funding. And I'm just like making it rain. $22 million into this community in 3 years. Like, what? And, we can have some intellectual conversations about the long-term impacts of that and the federal debt. And is this really the legacy we want to be leaving for our great grandchildren and blah, blah, blah. But as a practical matter, getting the money out the door in ways that are creating positive impact in the community. So like one of the things we did, and we're not the only community who did it. I stole the idea because, I saw it at a conference, but I think we were pretty successful at it. We did a shop local app. And so what we ended up doing with some of the ARPA funding was to have this reward system, essentially. People in the community could download this app and then they would shop at local stores, not the big national retailers, but if you shop at the local store, you'd earn points. And then you could redeem these points for free stuff at other local retailers. And then the ARPA money paid for the app, but it also paid for the free stuff reimbursed the retailers for goods and services they provided. And then you could also redeem the points for charitable contributions too. So it was a way of getting the funding back into the community, but in a way that encouraged economic activity, but also that I wasn't the one making the decision, or a small group of people weren't making it. It was the community saying, these are the retailers that we're patronizing. These are the places that we're shopping. And so it's sort of like crowdsourced distribution of the funding. And so, yeah, I'm kind of proud that we did that. I thought that was a much more creative way of spending our money than just doing a road. I mean, we did a road too, but I thought that one was a lot cooler than the road.
I think that keeps in mind, like you said, that intellectual conversation that has to be had about how federal dollars affect our budget. But I think if you're creating a pathway for local businesses to thrive, which would then create jobs and also creates like long, strong equity. Local business, not saying national retailers aren't tied to your community, but I just tend to think that the local businesses that are grown and supported by the county and provide a stronger hold and tie to that community. They're not going to jump because there's a great incentive somewhere else. They know that they're grown and the communities survive and thrive because of the community. So you're creating jobs, tax base, and a lot of the things that I think does make it a good steward of federal money than to spur the local economy. So I do appreciate roads too, because you need roads.
Right. Right.
Roads and infrastructure are important, but I do think that's a clever way to utilize that money to spur some economic development. So no, and on that note, is as far as economic development in the county, are there any industries that you guys are focusing on countywide that there's an effort to potentially bring in, or that you've seen even some of the cities on like from a regionalism perspective are focused on bringing XYZ to the county?
Yeah, so in 2020, so like the hottest day in the hottest week in August of 2020, when we all had to be socially distanced, which meant that only some people got shade. Super fun. We had two big announcements, two long-time local businesses that had been bought out by multinational corporations, both announced huge expansions in the community in the same week. And so that was really, I mean, like county, we can't even take credit for that. It was really a lot of hard work by the city, the economic development, the State Department of Commerce. There are a lot of players in that. But, you mentioned collaboration and coordination with other entities. And one of the cool parts of being in this community is we've developed a reputation for playing well. So when we go ask for something, it's the community asking, it's the Chamber of Commerce, the hospital, the city, the county, like we're all one voice. It's not, well, they want that, but we really want this. And so that's just been a great partnership. The airport here is incredible. One of those interesting facts about communities. So this in right before the beginning of World War II, there was an effort to do several big air bases in the middle of the country, as far away from both coasts as possible. And you can't get much more middle than we are. And so the feds came in and bought up a bunch of farmland and installed this massive runway. And in the late 60s, this was like the first round of base decommissioning. The city ended up with it and formed an independent airport authority that's actually in state law. And they operate this airport industrial center. And it's incredible what they've been able to do with it. But I mean, it's a huge airport. Like we were an alternate landing spot for the space shuttle. Like that's how long our runway is. So I mean, if you look at a map, like there's the city of Salina, and then there's the airport is almost the same size as the whole city of 50,000 people. Yeah. And so we've been able to do, and some of the things the county has participated in. One of the things we've been really trying to attract is businesses related to air service development and so aircraft servicing, that kind of things. We've attracted a business into the community that does overnight maintenance for planes. And so we are now the only essential air service airport in the country that has daily nonstops to 3 different hubs. So you can fly nonstop from Salina to Denver, Chicago, or Houston. And we're hoping that might not be the end of it. We're looking at some, but of course, one of the underpinnings of that is the fact that we have essential air service funding from the feds, which is at risk in the current budget environment, et cetera. So we invested a total between the county put in 400, the city put in 400, and the airport authority put in 100, so $900,000 in local funding to sort of attract some of the overnight flights, particularly from Denver, to make this all work. And now the rug might get pulled out from under us, but we'll see. We hope not.
Yeah, that brings me to my next question. And I'm curious to know, and I ask this to everybody, if you were to snap your fingers and you could change one challenge, you had all the money in the world, so no budget constraints, what would that challenge be? And the reason I do ask that is because just speaking to people that are in your position and others running cities, sometimes the balancing of national politics, whether no matter which way you look at it or which way you feel, sometimes just balancing national politics as that trickles down to local can be very difficult. So that is why that sparked in me to ask that question. So, like, what is the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, if I could snap my fingers, we would have more workforce and more workforce housing. So we're in this sort of loop of problems where we haven't had a lot of housing development in the community for 30, 40 years because we haven't been growing very fast. Well, now we have a lot of opportunity. We had these two major expansions. We've had the flight stuff. We've got an Amazon plant that's opening up. All this stuff that's happening. They all need workers. And so people can move here. It's relatively affordable here, but there's not a lot of housing. And so that it's sort of like, okay, I want more people to move here, but I also want to be able to house them as well. So that if I could solve both of those problems or that one interconnected problem, that'd be it.
I mean, that makes sense, and I think that is in line with a lot of the balance that I see. It's either we have the jobs, but we need the housing, or we need the workers, or we don't have the jobs, we have the housing, or we don't have any space, so we can't even bring the jobs in. Like we don't have commercial space. So it seems in your position, there's always a balancing act. So I can understand why it's almost like, yeah, if I could just get the housing here, the wheel can keep on spinning. So that definitely resonates with me.
And preferably housing, preferably non market rate, non incentivized housing, because I need the tax
You
dollars.
need the the revenue. Understood, understood. Well, I mean, the jobs are there, so yeah, no, I totally can hear that. Now, I definitely think you're at a place where this is more important to. Sometimes I speak to people that are like just kind of getting into their career, but legacy is probably, and you've left a legacy of success, of hard work. When you think of what is the legacy that you want to leave, or what will people be saying about Saline in 20 years? That's an easier way to say.
Yeah, gosh, that's a great question because this one has been weighing on my mind lately.
Understood.
I would really like them to be able to say that we did effective things, that this was sort of a turning point in the community, like between all the economic growth and the way we spent the ARPA funding and all like and the downtown development and a lot of things that are going. I want them to be able to say, the 2020s was really the decade when it trajectory went this way, and I'm hopeful that there are a lot of good things. Like we built the jail in an area of town that sort of needed redevelopment. And so I think we're starting to see development gravitate that way. It's not happening yet, but you can sort of feel it like, okay, things are getting fixed up around there. So I'd really like that to be it, to say like, okay, it wasn't like Phil was brilliant. It wasn't like there was this one thing, but the community made several good choices that just went like this.
Nice. That point of the inflection point,
Yeah.
I think is a good way. So that we looking at this time and saying the groundwork was laid, and that's why we're living in this successful community that we have now. I see what they did to make that happen. I think that's a beautiful legacy, and I definitely can empathize that that is heavy on your head now, but with getting ready. But on that, are there any words or just like words or experiences or you should watch out for this for our younger viewers that are thinking of either starting their journey into local government or maybe progressing in the local government now?
Don't do what everybody else is doing. Take some risks. You do you. I think there's so many people who are tied to a place. Like, okay, I've got my spouse's career to worry about. Like, we got to stay in this metro. The kids are here, the grandparents, whatever. And so I recognize that I've had the luxury of not having that kind of baggage. I've been able to move around, but also, I have a family that moved around. It was sort of just kind of the way it is. My sister was a pastor, so she moved way more than I did. So, but I think to the extent that you can, I think that's a good thing in this profession. Have different experiences, learn from different people, and don't sleep on smaller communities, out of the way places. Can have some cool experiences.
Think what I'm hearing is take risks with your career, and I think that's great advice. I myself, you know exactly what you want to do, and sometimes you jump into an opportunity, and that opportunity may even tell you like, no, I don't like being in a small community in which I'm doing all the things and I don't have the staff around me. And I like a larger government where I'm a little bit separated from the community, which is a little bit tougher because I like that interaction. But I'm able to have people that are working and I can kind of think of more forward thinking things. So I think we're the complete opposite. So I think trying new things is a great way, and taking risks is a great thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great observation, because I would definitely second that. I've had that experience myself of like trying to figure it out, right? Um, when I was in California, it was a pretty large organization. It was lean. I mean, we did not have a lot of staff, but it was large enough that, somebody was managing my calendar and all of that. And then when I moved back here in 2019, I went to a place where I was it. Like, it was me and the payroll person. And that was our whole office. And so I was like, yeah, sort of like the porridge is too hot, the porridge is too cold. So now I feel like that's part of the deal with here is like, oh, this is just right. Like, I don't have to be the guy who spends 40 hours a week thinking and being in meetings, and I get to get my hands dirty, but I don't get to live in the weeds all the time. I also get some time to think about legacy and think about community building and think about those kinds of things. So, yeah, you definitely like, what do you like? What do you resonate with? And what works for you?
Yeah, and how do you know until you try? So I think taking chances and risk is apt advice. And with that, Phil, I appreciate you being here. It's so abundantly clear that you have a great amount of experiences, story, wisdom. And I just want to say thank you and that I appreciate you sharing that especially to our young viewers. Because I know it's hard to get wisdom except from doing often. But I also think if you can hear somebody sharing it, maybe you can skip a few of the bumps and bruises along the way. So I definitely just wanted to say thank you for that.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is another episode of the Gentry Podcast. Again, this was Phil Smith Haynes, and he is the County Administrator of Saline County, Kansas. So thank you so much, and we appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Have a good one.